What an honor it is to be asked to speak today. It's a day I knew was coming. It's a day I didn't want to ever get here. I thought it was going to come a few years ago. Didn't think he'd ever leave St. Thomas. Go over and see him, and he was totally non-responsive. But he was a pretty strong man to live this many years with the problems that he's endured. All of you have memories of this great man, and all I can do is urge you to cherish those memories. As I look out, I can think of conversations that we've had that many of you were mentioned, and I wish I could just take time and just say what Raymond thought about you. And I'm going to tell you, he loved people, and I know that he loved you and he loved me. That's just the man he was. So how do I speak about my best friend for the last 18 years? Raymond was one of the 4 elders at the Walter Hill Church of Christ who hired me at the beginning of 1997. And I didn't begin work till the first Sunday of April of that year. And the very next Sunday, I was visiting Raymond in the hospital. We spent a lot of time in the hospital. 2 days later, he had triple bypass surgery over at St. Thomas. And he's had those ups and downs with his health ever since I've known him. But he told me early on, he said, Brother Paul, if I ever get better, you won't be able to stand me. Because he would have aggravated me to death, teasing me and pulling pranks on me. That's just the way he was. As Brad mentioned, he had such a wit and keen sense of humor. And I wish I could remember all of those little zingers that Raymond would say. But as long as Raymond was an elder, we talked on the phone almost every single day. And we were very close. Perhaps no one loved the Walter Hill Church as much as Raymond did. And if you knew Raymond, you knew what he believed. And he believed you ought to be attending church where he did. And that's just what he believed. And he's probably told you that before, that you ought to be coming out to Walter Hill. He also believed you ought to be there every time the doors open. And I guess he and I thought a lot alike like that. As I've read the various comments on Facebook, I think the love that Raymond had for people has really shone through. Raymond was old school. When men didn't show their emotions, they were tough. A lot of times I'd look out in the audience, and I got to where I was brave enough to kind of call Raymond out, but he looked like the wooden Indian sitting out there sometimes. No expression whatever on his face, no matter what. And I think he finally got to where he realized he could smile in church, that is okay. He could speak his mind. As Brad said, he didn't mince words, but he could also be kind and gentle. He was a John Wayne type of guy. And he loved John Wayne. He loved Westerns. Raymond was certainly not a perfect human, but he'd been made perfect by the blood of Christ. I also know that you didn't want to get on Raymond's bad side. You didn't want to be on the bad side of Raymond. And as far as I know, I only got on the bad side one time, and I knew I never wanted to be there again. After we had gotten to know each other a little bit, I told Raymond one day, I said, Brother Raymond, I said, my paternal grandmother was a Warren. And I mean, he didn't miss a breath. He said, we're not related. Well, the more I got to know Raymond, and I noticed the family resemblance of his siblings to my family, I thought, well, I'm going to say that again. I said, Raymond, I'm pretty sure that our families that worn tie must be there. He said, no, we are not related. He was adamant. And as much as I know that Raymond loved and respected me, he didn't want to be kin to me. He told me a lot about growing up. Growing up in Walter Hill, the cotton fields, that his mother always wanted to move after the fence rows got cleared up. Told me how he got the big dent in his head. Army life, coaching baseball, and his family. But he also told me a lot about the families of Walter Hill, and that helped me as a minister through the years. We spent a lot of time together at the hospital. And so I've got to share one story that he told me that I could share at his funeral. Several years ago, he was up, I believe it's the third floor where the surgical ward was at the old hospital. And he was just right around the corner from the surgical waiting room. And Helen had been up there sitting with him, and Helen's potassium level bottomed out, and she passed out. And they took her down to the ER. So while they were treating Helen down the ER, I went up to sit with Raymond. And regrettably, the hospital had given Raymond morphine. They're not supposed to give Raymond morphine because he has visions. And so he was laying there in the bed and he was seeing mice come out of his TV and walking around the walls. And then he decided he wanted to introduce me to two of his friends, 2 doors down the hallway. He didn't know anybody down there. Now, Raymond was a big man, and you know how modest hospital gowns are. So he was going to walk down the hall and introduce me to his friends. And he wasn't listening to me. Well, thankfully, just as we were about to step out in the hall and him give a show that would have embarrassed everybody, the nurse grabbed him and put him back in the bed. And he and I, through the years, have laughed about that so many times. And he said, when I die, you can tell that story. So I'm glad that I could share that one to you.